You're listening to the podcast Coffee with Mike and Julie, Libertarians Talk Psychology. This is current commentary from an MBA businessman and a PhD psychologist.
Look what they done to my song, Ma.
So I'm reporting this month on the Stress in America poll that the American Psychological Association does. And they've done one just recently to understand the mental health and stress of people going through pandemic adjustment. And found the interesting part, well, there's several interesting parts, but the most interesting to me is the age difference. So they found that Generation Z, which is 18 to 24-year-olds, had the most difficulty with their mental health because of the pandemic. 46% of them reported that they had trouble with mental health because of the pandemic. They were followed by, and this is exactly according to age, followed by the Xers. The Xers are, the millennials. No, followed by, it's not a perfect distribution, is it? The Xers are 43 to 56 years old. Is that right? They were 33% of them said they had mental health problems. Then there was the millennials. They were next. The millennials are 25 to 42 years old. They had 31% not endorsing that they had mental health. Okay, then we had a drop to the boomers, and of course the boomers are 57 to 75. We're still in the boomers.
Oh yeah.
We're still in the boomer group.
We
will always be in the boomer group. As the boomer group moves, we don't change. Okay, only 28% of the boomers endorsed that they had mental health problems because of the pandemic. And here's the kicker. Older adults, age 76 and older, guess what percentage they said they had trouble with the pandemic?
What were the boomers?
The boomers are 57 to 75.
Yeah, but what percentage?
28%.
28%. So
now the older adults, 76 and above.
Yeah, so it must be under 20%.
Well, that's not much of a guess. Go ahead and give me a specific guess. Go ahead and risk yourself.
Well, I could really risk it because you told me before we talked.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then you'd be cheating. Okay, older adults, 9%. Okay, now I thought it was a perfect correlation downward, but the Xers and the millennials, they're pretty, close, 33 and 31. And also with the millennials, well, the Xers, 43 to 56. But the kicker, you had said, let me let you say that one thing is the younger Zs, they're just, of course the shutdown would be serious for them because they're in the stage of life where they're courting. And they're 18 to 24, they're looking for mates. And they're not going to be looking for a mating online. Remember the all that major research on smell? You got to smell a mate in order to know if their immune system is the immune system you're looking for.
Is that just females or do males smell too?
Well, let's see. I don't know the answer to that because the research I watched was females were smelling males' T-shirts.
Yeah.
And I remember that. I remember smelling my teenager relationship with my boyfriend, and he smelled good to me. I mean, everything about him smelled good. So, I mean, obviously I was choosing him for his immune system. I love to wear your T-shirts when we were courting, and it was a smell. And we know we women are selecting for immune system.
Yeah.
We're probably selecting for other things, but we can prove that we're selecting for the immune system.
But your point is that someone in their early 20s they're in the stage of life where they're finding a mate.
They're seriously motivated to court around.
And it's important that they...
Yeah.
And it's important, and the mask too, it's important they see from a communication standpoint, they see
That's
that
a good
person
point.
and
I've been wondering why they don't make a mask where you can see whether a person's frowning or smiling. I mean, you could put a little window in there because, I'm trying to smile to our grandchild. I'm trying to show him I'm smiling at him, and it's like, this human communication. I mean, communication is 80% nonverbal.
Yeah.
And we cover our face. But anyway, So
it makes sense that
Z, Generation Z, the young people.
The youngest are aware that it's harmful to them. Okay,
so I don't think it's a significant difference between the X's and the millennials. I think 31% and 33% is probably pretty much the same thing. So they've got all the research shows that the people that are trying to homeschool their kids, and of course they're under heavy duty. So nearly half of parents, 48%, said the level of their stress had increased compared to before the pandemic. More than 3 in 5 parents with children who are still at home for remote learning said the same, 62%. So the Xers and millennials who have children at home, I mean, they're getting hit hard.
Yeah.
They're getting hit. They have a double whammy. But now you had something to say about the boomers. The boomers 28%, and the older adults 9%.
Yeah. So the observation that I have is that it's the exact opposite of what it should be, because younger people don't get the dang disease, and older people do. So
well, the Z's 18 to 24, they're practically immune.
They're practically immune.
I mean, their risk of dying in a car accident is much higher than their risk of dying from COVID. And if they could die from COVID, they probably know they have factors, risk factors.
We now know that it was silly to have a shutdown of the younger people in our population. We now know that.
Do you think they know that?
They know.
When you're listening to people, it's almost like they're not. That's not in their visual, mental picture.
I think some part of them knows that's true, but then the part of them that wants to comply with authorities is a bigger part.
You think
so they don't want to address that little detail about young people being immune. The big important concept is we need to comply with what the authorities tell us.
The obedience gene.
Yeah, because that's what's best for all of us.
Well, I mean, as libertarians, we're focusing on that obedience. I mean, I'm seeing right now in my community this obedience thing, which is some kind of proxy thing. But yeah, I totally agree with you that.
But isn't it fascinating that people over age 75...
It's like, what the hell? I don't care.
Oh, well. No
whatever.
It might get me, it might not. And boy, we see it. Now, we're in Florida, and when I go out, you don't go out, but when I go out and I'm always in the truck, and I see people, a lot of the old people, they don't wear masks or anything.
Well, I see both types. The ones that are super vigilant, and then the ones like, I don't care. Yeah, to have that strong of an effect for older adults, that's very interesting. And I think it's because what some people that are younger don't realize, that as you get older, you get comfortable with the idea of your death.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to live long enough, you begin to lose people, and you see the naturalness of death, and you're just not as afraid of it as you are when you're young. You haven't lived your life, you haven't procreated, you haven't done this, done that, done this. You get older, you get kind of like done that, been there, got a T-shirt. You get a little more bored with things because you've done it all, So older adults,
I think of it that same way.
It's a process. I don't know of any books. I've not read any books on it, but I used to be afraid of dying in a car an airplane crash. You remember the story about that? I had a flying phobia for a long time, and then this woman, I was sitting by a woman in an airplane, and I said, I used to love flying, and now it just freaks me out. She said, "Do you have children?" And I said, "Yes, I have 3 children." She said, "Well, you aren't afraid of dying. You're afraid of leaving them unattended."
Yeah.
The minute she said that, the complex evaporated.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's like, oh my God, that's exactly it. It's not that I'm afraid for myself. It was that I was afraid that, my children wouldn't be taken care of.
Well, you know that I had a similar experience that as a young man, I did all kinds of stuff, and I have remarked to you before that as a young man, I would have done all kinds of stuff if an authority figure had told me to do all kinds of stuff. That it kind of scares me to remember what I was like as a young man.
Yeah, it kind of scares me too.
But
when you wanted to stay on the coast during Camille, and you came back and the building that you were going to stay in was completely wiped off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
that scares me. I wrote an editorial about that story, but that's a great story.
Yeah, but that's what I was like as a young man.
You were young and dumb.
Yeah, but it was like I was just willing to risk things.
Yeah, risk taking.
But we had our first child, and I remember she was a toddler, and I took her on a small Ferris wheel. And I was terrified.
Yeah.
Here I am,
Here you are, have risked your life many times over, and yet on a Ferris wheel, with your daughter, your infant daughter. Toddler.
I was terrified.
Yeah.
And it was pretty clear to me that it's just because...
I'm not terrified for myself. I'm terrified.
Exactly.
I'm taking her up where if she were to fall, she would fall to her death.
That's right. And
those
and
instincts.
Of course, then of course I got in touch with the dreams we parents have.
Yeah,
the dreams of potential death of our children.
The drawback of having children is those your child is in a life-threatening situation. You wake up in a cold sweat.
Yeah,
that's but so the older adults being at 9% make sense to me, having talked to them. But your point about the illness is the older adults are at the highest risk.
In fact, we might as well say it the way it really is. They are the only ones at risk. Everybody else.
So someone who's
the
sick,
millennials. We baby boomers. We have some small risk, but the people that truly are.
I think it's
at
like
risk,
what is it? Like 85% of the deaths are over 75.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that figure, but it's
close.
Something like that.
That's pretty close.
When the coronavirus first hit, I calculated our risk being right at about 65 to 70, and it was 1 in 4. It was 25% death. It was pretty serious.
Well, I don't think that's what it is.
It's not that now.
Yeah, we know more about it now.
Well,
but basically, we're it's a little bit of a Russian roulette for us, but it's still pretty good odds for our age group, for us baby boomers.
Well,
the younger than baby boomers, forget about it.
Well, I agree with you, and I'm not sure we're exactly accurate about the figures because I think the figures are goopy. We followed the hydroxychloroquine expert Zelensko, and he turned that same figure of 1 in 4 into 1 in 20 with zinc ionophore treatment. So, in other words, all of this stuff is so gooped up with politics. You can't really trust the numbers. But needless to say, it's the older adults with the risk, and they seem the most comfortable.
Right.
Let's see how many people they surveyed. They surveyed 100 people, 76 and older. So that's a pretty good sample.
So that particular group was 100 people.
Was only 100. They surveyed a little over 500. They said 522 Zs, 1,000 millennials, 1,022 millennials.
All right, that's pretty good numbers.
Yeah, they're going to statistically control for their numbers, so that'll be fine. So this brings up the issue of the culture we're in and the snowflake culture we're in, which I relate that to the feminine, the rise of the feminine and the decline of the masculine. And that is related to the left and the right cultures. The left culture is, the right calls it the nanny state, but what it is the hypervigilance about every little thing that might cause distress, when in fact, feeling distress is how you develop resilience and hardiness. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody knows that whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Just like the line from Steel Magnolias, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, that idea. So a few more pieces of information, though. There's another study that I'm going to report on done by Sapien Labs, and they studied 8 countries, and they're comparing across countries. They found the same thing, that the young people are hit hardest, which is so weird that we did this to these young people. I mean, it's the government problem solving that did this.
And I think that would have been understandable for 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks or even 2 months. But then get with the program.
In 2 weeks, they knew who the vulnerable population was.
The stupidity
and there was no reason to shut down beaches and bars. No reason at all.
Well, from a libertarian standpoint, is you educate the older people to their risk. Well, you educate everybody to their risk, and then you let them make the best decision they can.
Absolutely. That would have been the libertarian style. But even if you're going to use the hammer, you don't shut down your economy for your young people when they're not in danger.
At least let the young people say, if you're young, your risk is like 1 in 10,000. I don't know. But, okay, so these researchers, they agree the decline in mental well-being was most pronounced in persons of the youngest age group, 18 to 24, and there were about 30 points lower than the people who are greater than 65 with their mental health. So not to protect the old people, because the young people, shutting down the young people did not protect the old people. I mean, it's ludicrous. Okay, what else? Residents of Singapore had the highest mental health scores, followed by residents of the United States. Yay for us. And at the other extreme, this was interesting, respondents from the UK and South Africa had the poorest mental health scores. Respondents who had insufficient sleep, lacked social interaction, whose level of exercise was insufficient, had the lowest scores compared to their counterparts. Okay, so that's coming out in both surveys. This is interesting. The poorest group, which was only 0.9 of their subjects, 0.9%. Mental well-being was poorest among non-binary third gender respondents. Among those people, now those are the transgender people, over 50% were classified as clinical risk in comparison to males and females combined.
Yeah, what's all that mean?
Well, the transgender people are not resilient whatsoever. They had the
emotionally.
Yeah, their mental health was in serious trouble. They have scores that let us know they're in trouble. They're in trouble.
Emotionally.
Their mental health. They get in mental health trouble real easily compared. That's good. That's a finding that's been popping up. So we were talking about the male-female, the culture, and the young people. So the paradoxical, kind of to sum up, the paradox of letting government solve your problem for you is creating another problem for us.
Is that the male-female thing that you were trying to identify with? Is that the female side of the world wants to take care of you, so we gave that task to government.
Yeah.
And instead of just informing the public, we said we don't trust the public to do the right thing, therefore we're going to take care of the
We're
public.
going to shut you down. The public,
We're going to make sure to take care of you. And
yes, we're going to decide for you. We're going to trust us. I guess some people call it the nanny state. Trust us, and we're going to over apply the idea. Because why? Because that gives them the power, and they get to feel superior. And we primates love to feel like we're rescuing, and we love to feel like we're superior, and we love to feel
in control of a situation,
because that feels powerful. The control is not the aim. The feeling of power and status and superiority is the aim of control, psychologically. So we get to do all that, and now we've got two groups. These research studies did not show what's happening to the children.
No kid.
The children whose socialization is critical at age 3 and 4 and 6 and 10 and 12. I mean, we're starting at 18 on these, but we can hypothesize that the level of damage going on in the social world for children is astronomical.
And then the counterpart is the danger to children of the disease is damn near zero. So they don't even get it. It isn't as if they get it and they get over it real quick. They don't even get it.
They ward it off. Their immune system, the innate arm of their immune system is functioning probably not as well as it should, but because they're not getting rest and they're not getting sunshine. But it functions exactly the way nature says function, is ward all this crap off. Protect yourself against biotic predators. I mean, that we have evolved that. And so we're looking at exactly the evidence for the innate immune system to be strong, and then when you get old, it's weak. It's weak.
But the children, now I know the face, the eyes of the face is probably the most important thing, but with all these masks and these children, they're not playing with other children, they're not playing like normal children play.
Yeah.
There's a lot of masks, they're being denied one half of the face.
Well, and to add to that, they're being denied nonverbal social communication development. They're being denied that, and it's 1/4 of their life, or 1/5 of their life, or 1/6 of their life. I mean, to us, a year is just like a little piece of our life. To a 4-year-old, it's major.
Yeah.
And this is really serious. I mean, I don't know who's measuring this, but we're just looking at this correlation, so we can project downward from these numbers that the younger the people are, the more devastating these shutdowns are. And the fact is, the risk to these people, these younger people, was insignificant.
Before COVID hit us, I was concerned about the young people because of the reliance on social media.
Yeah.
That they were not getting the social education that the younger people were not getting educated in how to read body language and everything else. I was concerned about
already a problem there.
It was already a problem before COVID hit our world. Now, I mean, we are totally being encouraged to do everything on the computer. Don't do anything in person. Do everything on the computer. In fact, you can't even get a live person on the phone to help you buy something.
Well, you're tapping into something is that I can't find a worker to come clean our house. I can't find a worker to come do our pool. I can't, I can't find anyone to do some statistics on a research study I did. I mean, the whole place, the whole thing is shut down.
And I can't help but mention that that's made worse by the whole thing that has to do with the minimum wage. That you're rolling your eyes about me and the minimum wage. I really
it's
think
like that's your pet peeve. I'm not going to allow you to talk about the minimum wage again. You've talked about it enough.
I'll just say it makes it even worse. How's that?
Okay. Please, I don't want to hear about the minimum wage again.
I understand.
So we're summing up today by saying to give your thinking over to the government so that they solve your problem for you is extremely risky, and for a number of reasons. And now we have evidence that this lame brain, one-size-fits-all shutdown deal was in the long term going to work. I mean, in the short run, I'm not even happy with it. But in the long run, we're seeing the consequences of very poor decision-making by the government.
I mean, that's a good conclusion, but I got to say that when this whole thing started, I was scared too. And as much of a libertarian as I am and believe in individual choice, I was all on board with, golly, maybe this is the kind of event where government does need to get involved and we need to shut down our whole economy. But that was when we were talking about shutting it down for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And after 2 weeks, we knew who the vulnerable portion of the population was, and it was
well,
clear.
Maybe let's just say 2 months. I think 2 weeks is a little short, but 2 months.
What they said at the beginning was 2 weeks. That's what they said.
Yeah.
And we now know that this whole thing did more harm than good. We now know that if we had just informed the public and informed the vulnerable part of our population to have less risky behavior, that we would have been much better off.
Well, and if you look at the curves from the cases and the deaths, now my strategy was to stay out of the infection long enough for them to come up with some treatments. So, that presented no problem for me. I don't like going out and socializing all that much, particularly. So it gave me a good reason to avoid socializing. Oh, no, I can't come because of COVID. I can't do that because of COVID. It's like, now that the vaccine is like, didn't you get your vaccine? It's like, no, not really. But I was like, now I don't have as good an excuse. But your point is that the idea was not so off, but then it became corrupted by what I believe it became corrupted by the phenomena of power. Once the government got that power to shut bars down and gyms down and places where young people went, then they had no ability to understand why you shouldn't exercise that power. Power is very motivating. David McClellan has written all kinds of stuff on power. It is very, very motivating because it is one of the three motivations, and it is very seductive. And once we gave our governments that power and we turned over to our government the thinking for us, then that's what they did. They thought for us. And that's what you got in New York. You got in New York. This is what you get when you get other people thinking for you.